said earlier, apologize for that. Grant here is local to me in Austin. Here, we struck up a conversation, and he's typical of a lot of people out there. He's 24 years old, and he's got a job, and he's saving money, and he's being careful with his money because he wants to invest, but he doesn't want to invest till he knows what he's doing, which is smart. That's the number one thing. You don't jump in. Anybody that tells you, oh, it's easy, just start now, and there's nothing, that's bullshit. You need to have education, and before you start throwing money at anything, you got to know what you're doing. I mean, you can make a lot of money very quickly. I got many students in my class that have become millionaires just in the few short years that I've been teaching people how to invest. But that's the difference between real mentorship from somebody that's actually been there, done that. And I challenge you to compare me to anybody out there. I got the best students, the smartest community. Not the biggest community. The biggest community, I always say the masses are the asses. You find large masses, you're going to find all the asses. You want smart. You want smart. And that's all I allow in my classes, people that have the right mentality. And so anyways, and you kind of fit that profile. So I'm glad you're here.
Yeah, I'm glad I met you. I've watched a lot of your videos, and we've talked and had some good conversations. And you give me the best advice. And there's a lot of stuff out there on YouTube and the interwebs, and when I'm looking at it, one thing tells you to do one thing, and this next thing tells you to do the exact opposite. And from you and your experience, and you telling me what you've done and how it's worked out, it's been awesome, and I've been listening to that.
Yeah, well, and it's really a lot of it's common sense, but a lot of times, it's like you don't know how to swim until you swim, and somebody instructs you. I've been in jiu-jitsu for 10 years. And, I'm a brown belt. I could have been a black belt probably if I applied myself more, took more time out. But I actually have been pretty diligent, put in a lot of time. And, I kind of came late to the game, right? I don't think I started till I was 50-something. So, but you can learn it. And there's nothing like a good mentor. I mean, my mentor, he knows how to compromise the body like nobody else. And then when you're constantly wrestling with black belts, which I have been for a long time, man, you learn a lot because you're learning from guys that have already been there, done that, and know how to compromise the body. And it's the same with anything. Anybody that has a lot of experience at something can show you how to do things, and they can tell you why. So let's get into that a little bit. Hey, please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. If you're new here, I'm always happy to share absolutely anything and everything. Just ask your questions, and you'll get a straight answer. Anyhow, go ahead. Let's talk about whatever you want to talk about.
Yeah, so one of the biggest things that I'm interested in is there's so many different type of real estate investments, and it's like, where do you start? Everything seems to have a positive and a negative. So maybe you could tell me about some of those things, like houses or land or commercial real estate or industrial, all the multifamily.
Sure, and I bought all those and more, and so we can start with that. So. Everybody starts somewhere, right? Most typically people first thing they buy is usually buy a house, right? Because there's more houses than anything out there. And it's a great place to start for anybody to invest anyways, because, that's what the banks, 99% of the loans out there are on houses. And so it's a readily accepted investment. Banks know that in general, houses go up in value, even if you have a lull or a period of drops. They know it's self-healing and it does come back. And so I'm going to share with you just a little bit. I'll share you with where I started, but this is really not super typical. But in my situation, look, I was 19 years old. I dropped out of high school when I was 17, and I went to work for a cabinet guy. And after about 18 months, he went belly up. Economy was tough back then, and I started building cabinets out of my garage in a duplex. And so not long after I got started, I was making noise with a saw. I had to find a place to operate because, running a saw in a residential neighborhood isn't cool. And so I started looking for a place to rent, and that looking for a place to rent led me to this place you see right here. So I was 19 years old when I bought this place, and the way I bought it, I want you to know this because this is kind of how opportunities come about. Now look, this is a 6,000 square foot building, okay? When I was 19 years old, I could build cabinets inside a garage, 400 square feet. But the agent that was taking me around looking at places to rent, he pulls up in front of this place. And he says, hey, how'd you like to buy this? Now, he had the listing on it, and he wanted a commission. He wanted to make a commission, for sure. But he knew more about the details. He knew that these guys, there was 5 partners on this thing. None of them seemed to really like each other, as I gathered. And I didn't know too much about it, but they had what's called an all-inclusive trust deed. So there was like 5 notes on this thing wrapped by another. They call it an all-inclusive, they call it a wraparound. Banks, this is one of the reasons I'm so critical of Sub 2. Banks don't allow you to wrap notes anymore. They don't allow you to do it. They can call the note, and it's a big mess, and believe me, sub 2 is garbage. I wouldn't recommend it to anybody. It's crumbs, right? But so this in particular, I was 19, and so he says, well, I said, I don't have any money. I said, I'm barely worried about having enough money just for rent alone. He said, well, guess what? He goes, I think they'll own or carry. And I'm like, what? Really? What's own or carry? So he explained to me, own or carry, no bank. They're going to be the bank. And I said, well, how much down? He said, well, we can try whatever you can do. I said, man, I could probably do $10,000 in 6 months. Can't do it now. So I made the only offer that I could make, and that was $500 deposit, open up escrow, and 6 months close. So a 6-month escrow, close in 6 months. Now that sounds good, buys me plenty of time, but I also wanted, I wiggled my way into being able to stay in the place. So I said, I'll take the property with, but I said, I need access to the property. I'll check it out. There was graffiti, there was graffiti on these walls where you see these bars. I put those bars in, by the way, 30-something years ago. They didn't have bars back when I bought it. But 40 years ago, what am I saying? 45 years ago. So what happened, Grant, was I didn't have money, but it was a win. I couldn't lose because all I had to do was come up with 10 grand in 6 months. In the meantime, I got to stay in the property. And the way I sold that is I said, hey, there's markings, there's people had graffiti on the walls. I said, I'll make sure the property's taken care of. I'll fix any broken glass that's there. And these guys were far away. They didn't know. Nobody was there. Nobody had eyes on the property. So I knew this was attractive to them. So they accepted my offer. So I moved in, and I figured, hey, now I don't have to pay rent for 6 months. And I was paying, $700 a month for the place I was renting back then. And so, so 700 times 6, there's 42. I could rent out part of the building. I could live in the building, had a little apartment in it. So that's what I did. In the 6 months, I'd saved the 10 grand, put the deposit down, and that was it. That was my first property. Now, that's not how most things happen. Most people, they get a few years under their belt working, they get a little bit of credit, a little bit of savings, they go to a bank. The bank, there's opportunities for people to get in with 5% down with FHA loans and different opportunities. So there's different avenues out there for everyone. But everybody should know that with creative financing, and a lot of people use that word loosely, and they act like it's a magical thing. Pretty much it's usually owner financing, just to be clear. It's usually owner financing. But there's a lot of other stuff too, but primarily that's it. We can talk about other stuff too. I've done many 1031s and different things that most of you probably wouldn't even know what that means. But so that was my first property. But just as well, now I want you to see, in a short time, I looked at other properties. And I started, I was super turned on the fact that I could buy something. I didn't know I could even buy a piece of real estate. Now I knew I could. That door was kicked down. I now knew that I could buy property. So I started looking at everything that I could find. And so, what are you talking about? Houses, right? Mm-hmm. So I started looking at houses. And here's a house. I got this house under market and got it under contract. And that little house there I got for 55. I got it for $40,000. And this is a corner lot, and this is in an industrial area. And I guess what? I got it under contract, got it for under market, but I didn't have the money to buy it. So I had to go find a partner. I didn't even know about hard money and borrowing money at the time, that I could borrow money from somebody particularly. But I found a guy a friend of mine that was successful. He was older than me. And he said, sure, man, I'll go in on something with you. So he was my seed money. We bought this for $40,000, and I said, let's sell it. It's worth $55, maybe $60. He says, well, I want to keep it. I said, well, give me half of the equity. So he cut me a check for $7,500, and so now I had $7,500. And understand that even though I bought this building down the street, I was broke. In fact, I was behind on more payments than I was on time with from the time I bought that building, because I was starting a business. I didn't have any history, and I was building clientele. But and that's the other good thing, when somebody carries a note, if you're late, we call it TRW, but it doesn't get reported. So you could be behind in a payment and it doesn't go against your credit. It's not a strike because it's personally carried by, an individual. So another good reason for owner financing. So got that one done. I put $7,500 in my pocket, and then in fact there's several houses. There's a place I got out here. Yeah, the cockroach house. I call it the cockroach house. So out here, this is the cockroach house across the street here. Yeah, I think this is it.
That's a good name.
Well, man, it was appropriate. Believe me, this place was covered. This is actually why I got the deal. So actually, this is a good story for all you guys that are watching too, because I think this is it right here.
Yeah, getting creative, and identifying those opportunities like you did. There were some cockroaches, but you saw an opportunity and
So this is what happened. Just so you know, I made a card that said I buy houses under $50,000, and there weren't many houses under $50,000 even back then. Okay, but I would give these to the agents that I knew in the area, and struck up conversations. And you got to open up your if you're shy, man, you got to break out of that a little bit, and man up and hand your card and talk to people and tell them that you're interested in buying. And I was young, I had long hair. I was too young to have much money. It would be obvious to anybody looking at me. But guess what? They took my card. And they'd say, well, yeah, I look for houses too. And I'd say, well, if you find one that you can't buy for whatever reason, call me. Sure enough, Dan McMahon worked at Century 21. He called himself the gentleman realtor, and he actually was a real gentleman. He calls me up. He says, hey, Tom, he goes, I think I got one for you, okay? And I go, great, where is it? And he told me where it was. And it's funny because I can go up in the sky here and tell you, my building was over in this cluster that you see up here. In the middle of the screen, over here. And his office was right about where that 8 is, where you see H8. I'll zoom in here. His office, Century 21 office, was like basically right above Grant's head. And so I drove from my office down the street, drove by, went into the cockroach house, and this is what I saw. I didn't even realize it was the cockroach house at that moment. But what I did see is I just drove by it, and I thought, man, that's a great deal. So went straight into the office. There were husband and wife sitting there. The wife was very distraught because it was her father that was in there. He had Alzheimer's or something, dementia, and she just needed to close up and get him out of there. She knew that. And so I said, well, let's go over to the house. And so we go over to the house and knock on the door, and the door's half open. We just walk in, nobody answered. And there her dad is, just kind of, asleep on the couch. And there's 2 other derelicts that are druggies, basically, out of it, sitting there too. And so we walk in, and I said, well, let's look around, and we're looking. And I remember walking in the living room, seeing him there, and she's just like, sick. And the couches are away from the wall. Everything's kind of weird. And we go into the kitchen. Well, the stove's pulled away from the wall, and there's I remember distinctly, there's a frying pan with about ½ inch of bacon grease in it that was all congealed, and there were all these dead cockroaches. They look like the Cadillac Ranch. You ever seen the Cadillac Ranch? They got the Cadillacs buried like this. That's what it looked like, but they were cockroaches.
Oh man,
it's disgusting. And they're looking at this, and I'm looking at it, and the kitchen was kind of especially disgusting. But then when you walk around through the kitchen, it took you back into a hallway again. And I go, let's walk around. We go around, and there's these 2 double doors. And so I go to pull on it, and it doesn't open easy. And so I'm standing there facing, and just like Grant would be like the agent, and then to my other side would be the couple, right, the husband and wife. And I grab that door, and I can't pull it open. And then I pull really hard, and boom, pull the doors open. Cockroaches were all over the top of the door. So when I pulled it open, we get showered in live cockroaches.
Oh, gross.
The wall is literally moving. There's so many. There's thousands and thousands of cockroaches. This is where the hot water heater was and the washer dryer. And she just screamed and ran out of the house. And she just sell the place.
Yeah.
And so we walk on out. We drove straight to Dan's office. We wrote it up. They go, what do you want to pay for it? I go, I'll give you $50,000 If you carry a note, I'll give you $50,000 because I knew I could buy it by myself with a note. I said, or I'll give you $34,000 cash. They go, give us cash. It's a deal. And now because they had to have cash, I didn't have cash, so I had to go lean back on my buddy Dan for that money. And so I said, hey Dan, I got a deal. He put up the cash, closed it right away. I cleaned it up, fixed it up. Sold it for like $64,000. It probably took $5,000. It actually got vandalized while I owned it, so that set me back a couple grand. But again, so there's your house example, right? Now I've given you industrial example. That was what I started with in the very beginning. Now, so land. Let's talk about land opportunities and land. So we can go back up here in the sky. And anybody got any questions out there? Can you see any comments?
Russ says hi. Hey, Russ.
Oh, hey, Russ. Good. Russ, another multi-millionaire student in my class. It's a wonderful thing. So look here, this is land. This is especially important for you, Grant, because you can see for every one of these blue dots you see, I bought 6 lots. I probably had 60-something properties here, somewhere around there. I don't even know. There's a lot of, it's easy to lose track of lots because it's just a piece of dirt. I bought dirt that I hardly seen. And so, but I was buying these lots for anywhere from $8,000 to $10,000, and I was selling them from anywhere from $25,000 to $35,000. So I was really making a killing, right? If somebody paid me cash, it was really great. But I'd get in, I'd buy a property for like $10,000. I put $2,000 down, and paying $100 a month on a note. Then when I'd sell it for, say, $20,000, and then they would give me. I'd get the $10,000 down, and then I would have them assume the note that I already have in place. So it'd be like, boom, $10,000 cash. It just turned to get my money back. And I did that over and over and over again. Once in a while, I'd get 25 for something I paid 10 for, or 30, for something I paid 10 for. And so I was making a lot of money quickly. I had a partner on a lot of these too. I ran all my money out the first 10 lots, 10 or so properties that I bought, and but I was still finding deals. And then I built 3 houses. I was a licensed contractor in California. And so I built 3 houses, and I made about $60,000 on each house, or maybe $70,000. Yeah, it was about $70,000. But I realized $20,000 of that 70 I was really making on the lot. And then one month I sold 3 lots for, I think I sold them for $30,000 a piece, and I paid about 10. So I made $60,000 just on these 3 lots, and I did it like in an hour of my time. Compare that to making $60,000 on a house that took 6 months. I had to hire an architect, draw the plans, I had to go through plan check and all this other bullshit you got to go through when you build a home. So land was fantastic, right? Now that's little tiny lots, and that's stuff that just about anybody can do. And who I would sell these to, because that's always what you want to know is who's your buyer. You don't really want to buy anything unless you know you got somebody to sell it to. And what it was contractors that were wanting to build new homes.
When you bought those pieces of land, was it owner financing?
Yeah, almost all of them.
Okay.
Yep. And listen, land is typically sold owner financed. Okay, the banks don't particularly like loaning money on land.
Yeah.
They like assets that produce income, right? And so 99% of the land out there, it sells owner financed. But in a short time. What am I seeing here? I started looking at bigger and better stuff. And I got this deal, like out here, here's 10 acres. I bought 10 acres out here for $30,000. And I paid cash for that. I paid $30,000 cash, but I resold the property for $165,000.
Did you add on to it, or did you just find a buyer that was?
No, I just put it up for sale.
Okay.
And I got what did I get? I must have got $65,000 because I carried a note for $100,000.
That's kind of the trick that like with that piece of land, the angle was buy it below market and then put it on the market. And so finding somebody that is has a reason to get rid of it, like the cockroach house.
Finding the deal. And this is the best thing, and why. And really, you guys should get my app. If you don't have my app, get the app. It's called Bird Dog Pro USA. Bird Dog Pro USA. It's a free app, but it'll show you how to share out property and make money, and you can.
Yeah, I'll look at that app. It's a good app. You can put your property on there and find other people, like-minded people who are trying to find deals, or
you find guys with money that can buy the guys that don't have money. And that's what you have to understand if you're watching. You're really interested in real estate. Is the big difference, I mean, really what's the same between you and any, a guy that has money is having the deal. If you have the deal, you have the power. If you have the deal, you're in the position to make the money. And, if a guy finds the deal that has the money, then he doesn't need you. But if you find the deal, then he does need you. And that's what, that's just where you can begin. It's a great place to begin. And if you can't buy it or you get a hard money loan to buy it, then, you get a partner. If a partner doesn't work, then you just sell it, do an assignment, assign it to somebody.
So Addison has a question.
Sure.
Any wisdom on retail strip centers? And I know you have a few of those, and maybe your experience with that.
Yeah, yes, and I love retail strip, and again, there's I'll show you a recent center I bought, not the most recent, but I'll show you one that I bought. I'm gonna take you to a better one. Let me see. Actually, you know what? I have a retail strip center I'm selling right now. But we can talk about that too. Let's see. And actually, that would be a good one. They're all good, but let me show you a place. Retail strip. And also, so when you start getting into retail, you're probably going to have a little more money than you would if you're just starting out. You know what I mean? And a lot of people think, and there's a lot of fake gurus out there say, oh yeah, just, you can put a partnership together. The problem is when you don't know what you're doing, you've never done it before, you're not going to do very well talking to somebody that does know what they're doing, or, you're not going to be very convincing to somebody that has, a strip center that you want to buy it from. They're not going to necessarily feel exactly good with somebody that doesn't already own a strip center. You guys are going to see I'm doing a video on this, on paving this right now, repaving this property. And so this is a 22,000 square foot strip center. The normal stuff you have in a strip center, you got a restaurant and bar, you got a dry cleaner, a hair cutting place, another bar, massage parlor, tattoo shop, a hair and nails place. And it's really interesting too, because what's really interesting is the nationalities. You start to see that there's specifically different nationalities that run the different businesses. All the Indians own 80% of the gas stations. Vietnamese probably have 80% of the nail business. Chinese own the massage businesses everywhere. And it's kind of interesting. But Addison, what else do you want to know? I mean, I love retail. What you've got to be careful is, I'll give you an example.
So she mentioned 1031.
Yeah. Just roll. I mean, typically what I'll do is I'll buy a number of houses, and I just say I'm going to make $100,000 on each of those houses, which is typical for me. So I might buy 5 or 6 houses, and now I've got more than $500,000 to roll into something new. Well, what I'll do is then I'll go back and I'll buy a strip center, and I'll do a reverse 1031. I'll buy the strip center, or maybe I'll get it under contract, and then I quickly sell out those homes, and I roll those assets that I'm selling into the one that I'm buying, and it's a fantastic way to defer a lot of taxes. You don't have to pay the taxes now. You pay it down the road someday. You sell the center if you don't 1031 that into something else. But what you got to be careful, look at this strip center, there's different things you got to watch out for, and that's why it's important you have a good mentor and you know what you're doing. Like this strip center here, it only has about 66% of the parking that you would really like. It doesn't have enough required parking. There used to be parking on the street, all over the street, and so that kind of made up for it. But what you don't want to do is, you don't want to buy like a retail center like this, like on the outskirts of town. And I can show you a lot of instances where that was a big mistake for people that did that and weren't very bright. In fact,
so that's where your experience, comes in, and having you as a mentor, you can come to you and ask you those questions and avoid those lessons that you learned maybe the hard way.
Yeah, absolutely. So look at this. I want you to see, here's a strip center, much bigger than mine, probably 3 times bigger. I looked at buying this place. This was built in the wrong spot. It was like the last place in town. So this town's grown some, but you can see all this town here, all these houses all around. But this is like right on the edge. There's nothing really to speak of behind it. And so they built this place, and then they lost their ass. And this is a beautiful center. And this was vacant for many years. Just recently, Brookshire Brothers took this center. I think it's 69,000 square feet. And it's a little bit up on a hill. It's not ideal. Shopping carts kind of want to roll down the hill. And there's reasons why this still is not a particularly good bargain. You would learn about that in the class. But the bottom line is, if you build a retail strip or buy a retail strip center that's kind of like on the very outskirts of town, you're not surrounded anymore by customers. So what happens is, the reason this place suffered so much and was shut basically down for years is look, see where I'm coming back? I'm heading back toward where everybody lives, okay? And so what happens is, look what's here. The majority of the traffic comes up this road, and they don't go straight toward that shopping center. They turn left, because going left is where the majority of all the houses are. See here, all this stuff is accessed off this left turn primarily. And so what happens is, this is a much more convenient grocery store to go to right here. See that market? And so this market got all the business, and the people that speculated, probably with a fake guru or somebody that thought they knew what they're doing, got a lot of people to invest and bought this piece of shit that sat there for 12 years and made absolutely nothing. And now it's starting to thrive, but it's only because there's been so much development. See all that dirt in the distance? These are brand new tracts of homes. These are actually built out already. But these are finally building out, which is now putting the necessary infrastructure around this property that people can justify it.
So Addison notices that you feature that strip center of yours a lot in your videos. So how did you come about that strip center? What's the story behind that?
I was in a hurry, to be honest. I was doing a 1031. I just sold. In fact, since we're talking about properties, different things to make money on, let me take you out to the property that took me to that property. So this is 50 acres. Right here, you can see this right here. I'll just try to zoom in so you guys can see it. Yeah, it's taking up the whole screen, right? But this section right here, all this that you see in the middle of this screen, this is 50 acres. You can see there's a creek. If you can look closely, you'll see there's a creek right here. And so I own both sides of this creek. There was like 17 acres down here, 33 acres above, total 50 acres. Again, now I found this back in like 1995, and I bought it for $205,000, and there was like, in this one case, there was 5 sisters that kind of, I hate to say it, they kind of hated each other. And then one of them had died. Now there's 4 sisters that weren't as close, kind of sad. And there was a mother, the matriarch that owned the property. She was going into having dementia. And so, anyways, I make a deal to buy this thing, and then the mother, she can't even sign legally because she's got dementia, so it has to go to the court. Court, right in the middle of that, somebody else starts jumping in on the game trying to take it from me. I was actually getting it for $150, and then it jumped to $205. I took it at $205, which is still, it was worth $1 million when I bought it. So I should have made the $1 million. Now that's another thing I'll tell you. Learn from there's so many properties that I held for a long time that I probably just should have sold. I mean, like that one there, I bought that for $200,000. I sold it for $2.8 million. So I made millions of dollars on this. Multiple millions, but in all honesty, I would have been better off selling it for $1 million as soon as I bought it back then, because I could have bought so much more. Yeah, that $1 million. But it was when I sold this and I got the $2.8 million. Like I said, I sold it. I did a 1031. I didn't have anything to buy, and so what I bought that strip center that I just showed you for $2 million, and I bought another little building, a beautiful building. I'll show you that one too as well. Yeah, I bought that strip center you guys already looked at.
Richard is curious on why you're selling the strip center. Maybe you can tell us after
to buy something bigger and better, Richard. That's why. Yeah, so in fact, that's a great question. Why would I sell a piece of land that's worth $3 million for the $3 million? Okay. Yeah. And then taking that money, I bought that strip center, and I'll show you another building I bought. It's right nearby. And if you guys look, here's something else. You ain't going to see fake gurus. be able to do this stuff, right? This is what you should look for in a real mentor. Somebody that can actually show you all the shit that you're seeing right now. But I bought this building here. I paid $1,050,000 for this, and I was offered quite a bit more than that right after I bought it. And I bought the strip center up the street here that I already showed you. And those assets I'm selling the strip center I bought for, the strip center I bought for $2.2 million when you just saw. I mean, the assessor's trying to say it's worth $5.9 million right now, which they're full of shit and they're terrible at their job. But it's worth somewhere between between $3 million and that number, right? It's probably worth closer to $4 million, maybe. I don't know. I don't know until I put it up for sale. But the bottom line is, it has given me an income of hundreds of thousands of dollars a year since I bought it, and I bought this other one as well. And so, but I spent $3.3 million. I took that $2.8 million, and I rolled that into $3.3 million in assets, and now that $3.3 million is worth quite a bit more than 3.3. And now I'm starting to sell those off to buy bigger and better. And that's kind of how it works, right?
It's kind of like the addiction to the role, yeah. Bigger and better. You finally take on something and you love doing it for a while, and then you're, I want to do a bigger project, or on to the next one. Progress, forward movement.
The thing is like whatever I buy with the money from this, I mean, here's a perfect example. When the sister property to that one sold for twice as much when I bought it. So the property next door to me sold for $4.2 million. I paid 2.1. So those are the kinds of opportunities. A lot of times when I do a 1031, and this is just seems to be the way it is, when I roll out of an asset and I go to buy something else, usually what I buy, I make whatever I made on that asset that I held for a while that I'm deferring through the 1031. I make that much and more on the next purchase. And so, and I know we got to wrap up here in about 20 minutes or less. So, but what else we cover? We got, how about industrial?
Yeah, industrial.
We kind of started with industrial, didn't we?
Yeah.
So we've done industrial, we've done commercial.
Multifamily.
Yeah.
An apartment or a fourplex or sixplex, there's a lot of those around, and I see a lot of those buildings that are a little bit more dilapidated and might have some good deals in them. And
sure.
If you can put some effort into fixing them back up.
Let's talk about apartments, because I got 3 of them right here that I bought. So these buildings with the blue dots on them, this one, and this one. I bought this building for $210,000. There's 21 units. I sold it for $1,065,000, whatever 55,000 times 21 is. That's what I sold it for. And so I made about $800,000 on that sale just by buying it and reselling it. This building, got this for $130,000, sold it for like $650,000. So, I made about $1.5 million. And then this one here, I actually bought this for $400,000 even. I sold it for $560,000, but I kind of did a few things that you'd learn in the class. I'm not going to share it here, but which brought me back another $50,000, something like that. So there, there's a couple $1 million, almost a couple $1 million made on just those 3 apartment buildings. So it doesn't matter. Listen, I tell all my students all the time, there is no bad real estate. There's just bad deals. Don't make a bad deal. And on that note, let me take you over here to Flip Anything USA. So, when you come to Flip Anything USA, this is what you're going to see right off the bat on the left here. You're going to see me when I was 18 years old. That's me, long hair Tom, back in 1981. And then these are about 10 years apart. These, all the way up till to here, old Tom that's now a grandpa. But over this whole time, it's been a blast. I don't even feel like I've really worked. I've had some tough times, but a tough time means, I bought more than I probably bit off a little bit more than I could chew, and I had to suffer. And I never been bankrupt. I've never filed bankruptcy. I've always had stellar credit, but maybe I was a little thinner than I liked at times. You know what I mean? But that's a small price to pay. Yeah. And so you can really, really do well if you do it right. But this is probably what should be most important to everybody here. When you come in here, by the way, you can apply for mentorship here. It's almost nothing. It's free. And if you do that, you'll have an opportunity to talk to me for free. You know, people pay me thousands of bucks now for consulting. But I'll talk to anybody that applies for free. And I don't let everybody in the mentorship, but I try to give everybody the benefit. They share with me honestly. I'll tell them what they honestly should do. And that is gold to many of you. But, you know, it's there for you if you want it. Now, the other thing, though, you really want to look at is the success. There's a success tab at the top of the page. And this is where you'll see people just like yourselves, you know, that are, you know, different. You know, Jerry here is pastor, you know, going to make a couple $1 million on this building you see behind him. Beautiful building. You know, Steve here, mechanic, you know, he bought 2 buildings, made a couple $1 million now. Shane here got in pretty green, and he's a pretty new student, you know, really new student. Only been maybe, I love Shane. Listen to Shane. Hopefully we can hear this out there.
Yes, I'm close on it now. I'm painting now, and don't have probably another 3 weeks, and it'll be listed. Should make at least 100.
Tom here, Flip Anything USA So he's talking about his 3rd property right there. Mm-hmm. And so in 7 months, he made $13,000 on the first one, I think $110,000 on the second one, and about $120. So he made about $250,000. He couldn't believe it. In fact, he wrote me a really nice letter. He said, "Tom, I got to thank you so much." He goes, "If I hadn't made the money on these properties," he said, you know, somebody kind of took the family farm, but because of the money I made on these assets, you know, that I bought since being in the course, he goes, I was able to hire a lawyer and get half the family farm back. Yeah. So he couldn't have done it otherwise. And man, you know, that's the best. One of the best things about making a lot of money in real estate is having the ability to do things that you want to do, help the people you want to help, family, friends, whatever. And it's very real. It's tangible, and there's definitely a path there. You know, young guys like Rich here. You know, Rich has got 50,000 square feet of real estate now. You know, he hardly had nothing when he first started, and he's made, you know, a couple $1 million, probably several $1 million, to be honest. And you know, all these you know, success stories. If you're really sincere about making money in real estate, you got to look a little bit deeper. Otherwise, you know, all us real estate gurus, if you want to call me a guru, we all kind of look the same from here. It's when you dig a little deeper, that's when everything changes. I'm authentic. I'm real. I have a record. I have a record of students making money. Most people don't have that. In fact, I don't know really anybody out there that does, at least not to my level. But but anyways, so what else did you have? Did we cover everything, or is there anything else?
I do have a question. So I think that, you know, maybe I'm wrong, but a lot of people don't know when to consider themselves ready to get into real estate. So if there was a tangible number that you can put out there, or maybe different levels of, you know, someone might have 50,000 or 100,000 or, you know, 200,000 in savings, they might not know when that number is at where it should be to start investing.
Right.
You know,
look at it's easier to start with some money. Okay, I can't say you have to have any. You have to have money to get in my mentorship, okay? Because I don't do it for free. But I fast track it to a higher level quickly. Now, I don't even want anybody in my class, if they said, "Hey, Tom, I have $10,000. I said, well, use the book, figure it out. You know, I give people some free advice anyways, you know, and make some money with the book, and then come take the class. Because it's expensive, but it's worth it. But I don't want anybody to get in if somebody spent all their money that they have just to be in my class, I would consider that a waste of time. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But the fact that you show the discipline of saving, that's a huge, huge thing. And so you guys that are out there that are brand new, and some of you that, I mean, you could have 100,000 in the bank, you could have $1 million in the bank, and I have students like that already in my class. We all have in common is you don't know what you're doing right now. But the learning curve is very short. It doesn't take very long at all to really get up to speed where you can start making money. And don't get me wrong, it's not like you're going to learn everything I know in 10 years. You probably take longer than that. It takes 4.5 decades. You're going to encounter things. It takes 4.5 decades to encounter. You can't encounter them all that quick. Mm-hmm. Now, in the class here, what's interesting is there are people that have encountered different problems that I had over that 40 years, but in an entirely different order. You can have a problem hit you for your first year, but Liam actually got hit with a really hard trouble. But I'd already been through that. So I helped him just squash that problem, and he made $350,000 on that deal. And so it really makes a difference. and just trying to think, just all these guys. I urge you to click on and watch these videos. This young man here, Rich here, had picked up a couple of properties, made like 100 or so on the first one, about 100.5 on the second one, and then damn near 800,000 on the third one. Correct?
Yeah.
His income. So that sounds great, right? Well, that now pales in comparison to what he's made since that interview. He's more than doubled that. Okay, so he's at that multimillionaire status now, and it's a very cool thing. This is a young guy that's early 30s that has now quit his job and is a full-time investor, and I expect great things out of him and other people in the class. In fact, many of my students, I think, are going to have more money than when they get my age. They're going to be richer than me, anyways, for sure. Probably even there sooner. But it's a fantastic thing. It's just so damn cool. But
it's great to see all the success. And what's awesome is that anybody can apply for the mentorship, and you can give them a little bit of guidance and accept them into your mentorship if they're where they should be.
If you're ready, I'll let you in. But back to your question, how do you know when you're ready? You know when you're ready. You know when you're ready. And if you don't know, then you're not ready.
Yeah.
Okay. But you have to start educating yourself. You just have to learn. You have to start learning. And you guys that have $100,000 or $200,000. You have equity, you have a house, of course. Listen, that money you have, you could be parlaying it into making much, much more. So you guys that have, money already, maybe you've sold a business, or you know what I mean, or you just make a hell of a lot of money as an engineer at Google or whatever. You guys, you need to learn how to invest. Otherwise, chances are you're going to throw your money in with something or some stupid low return thing, and you don't realize it, but you're hurting yourself. So anyways, you can, again, go to the links below, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and I think it helps the channel, but also it'll help yourself. Number one, you got to look out for yourself. But anyways, I appreciate you, coming in, Grant, and those of you watching, please hang out and put any questions you got in the comments, and I'll address any questions you have. I'm happy to dig into it. And again, fill out the mentorship survey or sign up for a webinar, and you'll get a chance to talk to me for free.